Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Cabinet meeting of Staffordshire County Council today, Wednesday the 15th of February. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Mr Bradbury, do we have any apologies?
Good morning, Leader. No, we don't this morning.
Second item, declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order 16. Do we have any declarations of interest? For the record, I see nobody indicating. Item 3 is decision notice of the meetings held on the 18th and 25th of January 2023. Is it your wish that I sign those as a correct record of those meetings? Agenda item 4, leaders update. Colleagues, I was delighted to see so many businesses and employees waxing lyrical about the benefits of apprenticeships last week during National Apprenticeships. And just as an aside, my son completed his apprenticeship yesterday. Yay! He's now an engineer, and it's been 3 years hard graft, and he's deserved it. And what a great way to actually get qualifications without having to go to university. So I am waxing lyrical about it. Apprenticeships are an important first step on so many people's career paths and can be a lifeline for businesses of all sizes looking for fresh talent. Over £4.2 million of investment in Staffordshire Means Back to Business scheme was amongst many successes, supported almost 500 new apprentices into training and work. Does that mean I need to declare an interest? Because one of those apprentices was my son. No? The new Staffordshire Jobs and Careers Service is also a great starting point for anyone looking for an apprenticeship, job or career in Staffordshire. Whatever stage of career people are at, I would encourage them to consider an apprenticeship and visit the website for details. Across Staffordshire, thousands of carers do an incredible job looking after people of all ages. They don't get recognition they deserve for the difference that they make. So earlier this month, we launched Staffordshire Dignity and Care Awards, now in its 9th year, asking people to nominate carers, work colleagues, friends and family members. And when I was portfolio holder, I had the privilege of attending those award ceremonies. It was just tremendous to see the amount of effort that people have put in. And I know that Councillor Jessel now attends in her role as portfolio holder, and I think she feels the same. The awards are open to anyone who works in the adult care sector, care companies, as well as informal carers, and recognise those who go above and beyond. So if you know a brilliant individual, care company or organisation who provide high quality services that make a real difference, then please get nominating. Fixing more roads and improving transport is one of the Council's top priorities. Work started in the last couple of weeks near Sairden in South Staffordshire. Have I pronounced that right? Yes. And on the A34 near Stone. They are part of the County Council's £5.2 million investment into improving 8 major gateways into the county's towns, and they form part of the wider investment to improve our roads and keep residents and businesses on the move. And I'd like to pay tribute to Councillor Williams and his teams for all the hard work they do, and Mr Ayres, and particularly on a morning like this morning where you see how much grit has gone down on the roads over the course of the night to keep us safe as we travel into work this morning. So thank you, Councillor Williams, for all that work that you and your teams are doing. Elsewhere, with support from the County Council, we are seeing more new business start-ups in Staffordshire, and they survive for longer than ever before. Following the pandemic, we launched the Get Started and Grow programme to offer new and growing business accountancy, digital and marketing support and guidance on putting together cash flow forecasts and business plans. The programme is free and delivered by local professionals, as well as more startups. Our 3-year survival rate is above the national average, emphasising what a great place this is to invest, launch and grow your business. And I appreciate, for the Deputy Leader, I'm stealing most of his thunder for his Back to Business report, but hey, I can do that. Next, of course, is the History Centre. It's so exciting to see work get underway for the new Stafford History Centre, just across the road from County Buildings. The £5.4 million project is funded predominantly from our successful bid to Heritage Lottery Fund. And I know how hard Councillor Wilson has worked with her team to bring that forward, and I'm absolutely delighted to see the smile on her face at last that we've got this History Centre kicking off. Securing this money will bring more than 1,000 years of Staffordshire history to life. 1,000 years. Phenomenal. The new centre will extend Staffordshire Record Office whilst incorporating the William Salt Library with a modern glass entrance, creating a bright exhibition space. I very much look forward to the opening next year. Finally, to encourage more tree planting in gardens across Staffordshire, we will be giving away 5,000 trees to residents. The trees will be available to pick up from Chasewater, Apedale, Deep Hayes and Greenway Bank County Parks on Thursday, the 23rd of February 2023 between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Kerry, this one's aimed directly at you, I hope. Picking up trees. People can pick up free trees from Chasewater, Apedale, Deep Hayes and Greenway Bank Country Parks on Thursday, the 23rd of February 2023 between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. The trees will be on a first-come, first-served basis, and 1 tree per household will be allocated. Any leftover trees will be donated to school. And thank you, Councillor Tagg, for this initiative. Absolutely wonderful. Hoping to see more trees growing in Staffordshire. And so, colleagues, on to our first full agenda item, which is the minutes of the meeting of the Property Subcommittee held on the 1st of February 2023. Am I okay to move those? Move them. Thank you. And then the Staffordshire Means Back to Business oral update is agenda item number 6. You may have heard some of this as part of the leader's opening remarks, but hey-ho, never hurts to hear it twice. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader, I think. Luckily, there's quite a lot to talk about, so I'm not short of other things to discuss, but I will just add my comments of support to National Apprenticeship Week. It's such an important event in the year. We have an enormous number of apprentices learning in our county, and it's great to hear about the success story in your family. It's one of many, I'm pleased to say, and what a great way to get a higher qualification to be paid whilst you're doing it and also gaining experience in the workplace. It's fantastic, so we absolutely celebrate that, and we're proud of our role in supporting many, particularly smaller and medium-sized businesses in being able to take on those apprentices. In terms of my bit of the update, I'll start with the big picture and then talk about some of the things that are going on in the county. So colleagues will no doubt have seen that inflation appears to have peaked, and that's very good news indeed. We've just this week seen the announcement of the 3rd month in a row of a small decline in inflation, and we expect that to be a gathering trend during the year. That's not to underestimate the challenges that inflation creates, and of course the prices aren't going down as inflation decreases. It's the rate of increase is slackening, but that is nonetheless good news. It's also particularly good news that our national economy has not entered recession, and many economists, many of whom were predicting that we would enter recession, are now saying that they don't believe that we will as a country. So again, welcome news on the macro front. In terms of the Staffordshire economy, I always like to talk about our claimant count. We have again seen a very small increase in our claimant count here in Staffordshire, 265 new universal credit claimants, which takes our claimant count to a rate of 2.8%. That remains one of the lowest in the West Midlands and far lower than the national average for England, which is 3.7% of the working age population. So Staffordshire is a place with very low unemployment compared to the regional and national averages. Within that, there was an increase of 45 in the claimant count for young people. So again, a very small increase. Just a bit of commentary on that. This time of year, we always see seasonal jobs ending. And so we do see an increase in every year, and therefore those numbers are reflective of an annual event. And so there is some explanation there. It's also typically a quieter period for recruitment, and we tend to see that picking up as we head towards Easter. So we will watch those trends. And as always, we take the steps that we can to support our businesses, both in sustaining employment and indeed increasing it. In terms of the other macro thing from a Staffordshire perspective, I'm very pleased to say that we've now published our economic strategy for 2023 to 2030. Colleagues will be familiar with this because it's been a job of work over 2022 to get this right, and the key priorities within that strategy are supporting the regeneration of our town centres, enabling people to secure higher paid, higher skilled and high social value jobs, supporting more people to start and grow a business. And I must dwell for a moment on the other point that the leader made in his opening remarks, which is that massive increase in the number of start-up businesses in Staffordshire. over 1,000 more new businesses born during the last year than in any previous year, and we're now up to the national average for those startups for the first time. That is huge, and again, something that this council has supported extensively. Encouraging greater levels of innovation activity, I'll touch on that in a moment. Developing investment-ready projects and developing our propositions for our transformational economic growth corridors, particularly the A38 and the A50, A500. So those are the priorities that we'll be working towards delivering, and regular attendees or viewers of this cabinet will know that they are all things that we've been working on for some time. So it's really a continuation and a sharpening of our focus. In terms of innovation, just another point to mention is that our focus on that is reflected in government's reorganisation that we've seen announced over the course of the last month. So we were particularly pleased to see that there is a specific department for science, innovation and technology now. And we're also very pleased to see that there is a department for energy and net zero, which we hope will take a great interest in the hydrogen work that's going on in Staffordshire along the A50, A500 corridor. In terms of it supporting innovation again, we are particularly pleased that the Keele University Science and Innovation Park continues to be extremely popular, supported by Staffordshire County Council. So there's a lot of activity regarding innovation that we're very proud of. The final point on innovation that I will mention is the very good news that the government has granted permission for JCB's hydrogen-powered backhoe loaders, developed as a technology and manufactured here in Staffordshire, to be used on the UK's roads, and therefore will be working very soon on construction sites across the UK. That project's already led to the creation of 150 new jobs within JCB, but I think that is very much the beginning. And if we continue locally and nationally as government to support businesses like JCB, we will see thousands of new highly skilled, highly paid jobs, and indeed high social value as they contribute towards decarbonisation here in our part of the world. And I think that's incredibly important, practical innovation that benefits everybody happening in our part of the world. In terms of other announcements, I must mention the extremely good news that our Levelling Up Fund bid met with success, meaning an investment of nearly £20 million into our road and transport network here in Staffordshire. Key amongst that is the upgrade of Branston Interchange near Burton, in an area where there has been considerable housing and commercial development in recent years, and more to come. It's a hugely important interconnector, which government will be funding the upgrade of. In addition to that, we're seeing significant improvements on the A34 between Cannock and Stafford, again much needed on a busy key trunk road within the county. And we're also seeing investment in clean buses, which I know are going to be extremely welcome for people on the routes in question, both the people riding the buses and the people breathing the air in the areas that they pass through. The final thing that I'll mention is also the good news that our colleagues at Staffordshire Moorland District Council, a popular part of our county to be discussed in our council meetings, have had in securing £17.1 million through their own Levelling Up Fund bid to redevelop Leek Town Centre, investing in the Nicholson Institute, where Staffordshire County Council's library in Leek resides, but a magnificent building, also hosting the town's museum and art gallery, together with investment in their markets and in other local leisure facilities. This is fantastic news for Staffordshire, and we are now running dangerously close to the £200 million mark in terms of the investment that we've seen into our county, particularly into our towns and major infrastructure through the government's Levelling Up Fund, Town Deals and Future High Streets Fund. So we are bringing the money home to Staffordshire, which is really good news, both public sector and private sector, and we will continue to play our part in supporting that activity. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor DeVille, we spent a lot of time last Thursday talking about the moorlands, but I guess you want to say a few more words.
Mr. White, very many thanks. What a breath of fresh air to hear of this positivity, and Staffordshire is certainly more than open for business, isn't it? Great place to learn, a great place to work. Congratulations to to your son, Alan, on completing his apprenticeship. That's great. My son has recently completed his apprenticeship at JCB. What a great start to a career. And I think this proves that, university doesn't necessarily have to be the answer. It's not for everyone. It's great to actually learn on the job. So I'm a great supporter of apprenticeships. I'm also a great supporter, Deputy Leader, to the work that you're doing on business startups. And I'm really pleased to hear the success rate with the survival rate of business startups. And I will certainly support all of our plans from business startup through survival and then on to business growth. And I know you've got really exciting plans on helping businesses grow. Yeah, great news for the Staffordshire Moorlands. I was in a meeting a couple of weeks back with Alton Towers. They've had challenging times, of course, since the Smiler incident and then through lockdown. They've got some fantastic, exciting plans for growth of tourism in the Staffordshire Moorlands. So that's great news for my area and great news for Staffordshire. But that's a really, really positive and upbeat report, and what a breath of fresh air that report is, Deputy Leader. Thank you.
There being no further questions, thank you very much, Niamh, for the report. Good news as always. Always more to do though, and I note that you're on it all the time, so that's wonderful. Thank you. Moving on then to the Diversity and Inclusion Progress Report. Ladies and gentlemen, the Equality Act 2010 requires public bodies to show they are advancing equalities agenda under the public sector equality duty. Specific requirements on councils include publishing at least one equality objective every 4 years, as well as key information through the annual gender pay gap report and workforce profile on the 1st of April each year to demonstrate how we will eliminate discrimination and advance equality. I want to emphasise though, for Staffordshire, this isn't about being compliant with the law. This is about doing the right thing to open opportunities to people from all sorts of backgrounds, male or female, because that way we make ourselves more inclusive, we represent our population better, and we get more out of our workforce as a consequence of the work we do around equalities. So this isn't, whilst this report is required by law, this isn't something we do because the law requires it. It's something we do because it's a good thing to do and it's the right thing to do. A great deal of work was undertaken in 2021 to review the Council's approach to delivering against the public sector equality duty, and it was recognised that equality considerations are embedded across the organisation with a strong corporate focus on responding to and addressing the gender pay gap. It was, however, acknowledged that more could be done strengthening the Council's approach. Therefore, in December 2021, you'll recall the Cabinet agreed to adopt a new set of equality, diversity and inclusion principles and objectives along with an associated delivery plan. A draft of this Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Progress Report has been discussed at Corporate Review and Scrutiny Committee on the 12th of December 2022, and the committee noted that both the progress made to deliver against the Council's EDI principles, that's Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Principles, Objectives and Delivery Plans, and the Council's Gender Pay Gap and Workforce Profile Report. Just by way of reminder, the principles that we operate are that Staffordshire is a place where there is equality of opportunity for all, regardless of circumstances. Staffordshire County Council is an inclusive and diverse employer where people feel they have the opportunity to succeed and progress. And Staffordshire County Council develops and delivers services that are inclusive and accessible to all. The report goes into some detail looking at the year one in review and highlights issues like the gender pay gap and workforce profile, translation and interpretation contract, community impact assessments, inclusive and representative employer brand, new applicant tracking system, anti-harassment and bullying policy, communications activities, inclusion, diversity and equality, diversity and inclusion mandatory e-learning modules, support for employee groups, supported job seekers facing barriers to employment. That should be supporting job seekers facing barriers to employment. And then also looking ahead to 2023 and 2024 sets out what we'll be looking to do in that period, including the EDI will continue to be a prominent thread throughout the new internal people strategy, further development of recruitment and employment policies, in particular making sure that it's easy to try and get a job at Staffordshire County Council, and we respond in a timely fashion to that. Engaging and collaborating with a range of staff groups, continuing to work to ensure apprenticeships provide nationally recognised work-based qualifications, continuing to strengthen our training offer, and that will be the objectives for the period ahead. There's a lot to do. We keep on going with this. When I meet with staff groups, it's often the case that one of the things they find quite attractive about working for Staffordshire County Council is that our people strategy is coherent and they feel like they are part of a team. And I think that's a good thing, and it allows them to thrive within the organisation that is Staffordshire County Council. The appendices that you have are the Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion Delivery Plan 2022 to 2023 and the Gender Pay Gap and Workforce Profile Report March 2022, which is included for you to note. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the body of the report. I will go to the recommendations, but if there are any questions, Councillor Jessel, I know you've got one highlighting perhaps a slight lack of clarity on one of the tables.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Can I first of all say how good it is that the completion rates are going up, which enables us to have an even more accurate picture of the staff that are employed here. And I think, you know, it is good that all the indicators that we have to track are going in the right direction. I think one of the underlying things that we always should keep an eye on is that we make sure that we get the right staff in the right roles with those right skills, and I'm sure we do that as well. My one query, and I apologise, it could be the way I've read it, but it's on page 36 on the overview. There is a pie chart there, and particularly if you're a member of the public, you'd be very surprised because it's indicating that in health and care, only 15% of our staff work in health and care, but almost half are in family and communities. It may be that a lot of the staff involved in health and care are not directly employed by us, but that almost needs to be added as an explanatory note because I think it's a bit misleading. We could get people quizzing us as to why only 15% of staff are involved in health and care. Thank you.
Thank you. That's extremely helpful to point that out. I've got the Chief Executive whispering in my muttering in my ear, that's his word, that he will correct that because we do need to provide clarity for that pie chart. So thank you for raising that point. Councillor White.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just briefly to comment on this, as somebody who works in the recruitment world as his day job, you've said this is the right thing to do, but which it absolutely is. But it's very good for our organisation, and I think the importance of encouraging people from different backgrounds into an organisation like ours can't be underestimated. I'm reminded of one of my clients who's a lovely business, very successful but very friendly, welcoming, and a business that lost very few people as well. And they found that after a few years they looked around and found that everybody there was someone who'd come in because they'd been sort of recommended to join the business by somebody else who was there already, and surprise, surprise, they mostly came from similar backgrounds as a result, and they were perhaps lacking in a bit of difference of opinion, creativity and constructive challenge as a result. It is really good for organisations like ours that are good places to work, friendly and welcoming, to make sure that we're constantly challenging ourselves in terms of making sure that we are drawing from the entire pool of talent that's out there. There's a massive pool of talent in Staffordshire, and it's really good that we're making sure that we are welcoming people in with open arms from across all of those different types of people that we have within our communities. And then once they're in our organisation, that we're always challenging ourselves to make sure that those people are all progressing at the pace that they're able to. So this is really good, but there's a healthy dose of self-interest in it, which is a really good thing in itself.
I think it neatly dovetails into Councillor Jessel's workforce strategy as well. The importance of recognising the workforce that we have and potentially have, and that's the important word, isn't it? Potentially have, is key to our success as an organisation. And this, I hope, will be laying the foundations for a future workforce that isn't put off by the profile of Staffordshire and wants to come in because we recognise within documents like this that we're a welcoming and inclusive organisation. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Leader. And really, following on from those comments, which I think are really important, that this is not a policy tick box exercise, that we've done this, we've got the policy in place, we're happy with it, let's move on. It's much more important than that, and is very much part of the day job of any organisation, that it's vigilant on those areas where people may feel that there are barriers to them in terms of either achieving, applying, or moving into something. And some of those barriers are not obvious to everyone. We see in the report the wide range of barriers that might exist for people, and it's not just about gender or race, but it goes much further. There's a long list there of areas. And for this to work, we have to be proactive on a daily basis to ask ourselves, what barriers exist here that might mean that this is not open and inclusive to as wide a number of people as possible? What might prevent people from thinking, this isn't for them, I can't do that? And it's hard when you're working in an organisation and you feel like you're in a minority situation. It's much harder for people, I'm not talking just about race, but it could be sexual orientation and all sorts of things, disability, age, anything that says to you, what is it that might prevent anyone moving forward for this? And how do we remove those barriers? I was, in my day job, doing a piece of work recently on an organisation, just looking at some of their governance documents, and was quite surprised to find so many references to, almost without saying it, implied people like us kind of implications, that this is where we kind of bring people into the organisation. And this is strange for a white elderly bloke in a dark suit to say, well, thank you, at least then, to say, but actually it does sometimes feel like that. It feels like organisations can be recruiting on a like us basis. That's not the case in this policy, and it's really refreshing and important that we've got this, and it actually does embed not just the principles, but the intent here, which is to be proactive about stripping out barriers to access. Really, really important, and it's part of what we should be doing on a daily basis.
Thank you, and I endorse those comments. We've got the recommendations in front of us. Mr. Bradbury, there's been a proposal to put a clarification note into the Appendix 1 as proposed by Councillor Jessel. Do I need to add that to the recommendations, or can that be done separately? So long as the undertaking is complete, for which I'd be grateful. The three key recommendations then are that we note the progress of the Council's work to further strengthen its approach to equality, diversity and inclusion, including the delivery of the delivery plan. Well, you'd hope you'd deliver the delivery plan, wouldn't you? B, note the Council's gender pay gap report and workforce profile as reported in April 2022. And C, provide comments and feedback on the emerging priorities for 23-24 as part of the Council's continued commitment to promote equality, diversity and inclusion. It is so moved. All those in favour?
Agreed.
For the record, that is unanimous. The next item, very, very exciting item, because this is something I'm particularly interested in, which is brought to you by Councillor Wilson, entitled Empowering Our Communities. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Leader. Good morning, everybody. Today I'm sharing with you a really exciting paper, as most of mine are actually. This one's describing our community's position statement and the draft community's delivery plan for 2023. So empowering our communities needs to be at the heart of everything that we do as a council, and I feel very passionate about this subject and this project, and I know that you all are too from previous conversations that we've had on the subject. We've done a great deal of work with both partners and residents in the last 18 months to support communities, and that's especially true of our community managed libraries and the Household Support Fund, through to our community champions work, the Climate Change Action Fund led by Councillor Tagg, and of course our new voluntary sector contract. But I know, and we all know, that there's a lot more that we can do here, and I feel that working with our communities is even more important than ever before as residents continue to recover from the pandemic and deal with cost of living issues caused by that and, of course, the war in Ukraine. The community's position statement that I'm sharing with you today sets out for our staff, for our members and all our partners what's been achieved over the last 18 months and how we want to continue in the days, weeks and months ahead. It describes a clear and detailed delivery plan for 2023, and it allows us to engage with our communities and our partners even more so that we can develop an innovative community strategy for Staffordshire for 2024 and beyond. And we're doing this now to reinforce to our organisation the importance of our work with communities, and we want to make sure that we're really clear about what we can achieve and how we plan to do it. So I'm asking Cabinet today to approve this community's position statement and the delivery plan too, and give us the go-ahead to speak with our communities over the coming months about how we can best work alongside them in the future. So just a really brief summary of the plan itself, although obviously it's in the papers. The Community's Delivery Plan 2023 has 3 strategic objectives, and these are to embed community-led prevention and early help, to promote community action and build community capacity, and to support our organisation and others to have a communities mindset. Embedding community-led prevention and early help will involve developing family hubs, delivering the Supportive Communities Public Health Programme, round 3 of the Climate Change Action Fund, and continuing to deliver our community-managed libraries offer. And we'll also be encouraging and inspiring our town and parish councils to feel as if they can really be empowered enough to work on strategies to help their own local areas themselves. Promoting community action and building community capacity will involve delivering next year's Members Fund, which will be hopefully happening earlier in April, to facilitate with the King's coronation and the celebrations around the county for that. There'll be more doing our BIT communications campaigns and supporting the voluntary sector as we already do through our new VCSE capacity building framework contract. And I'm absolutely delighted to see Gary Jones here from Support Staffordshire, whose knowledge and experience has been absolutely essential to hundreds of organisations in this county in helping them to flourish and thrive and provide incredible support within our communities. And I'd like to thank Mr Jones for everything his organisation has done and will do in collaboration with this county council and our partners. Supporting our organisation and others to have a communities mindset, so similar to the green thread that we have with climate change and our carbon footprint, we want to look to ensure all things have that golden thread of community running through them. And this means that we'll have better opportunities for partnership working and reviewing our internal policies. So that's a brief update on the paper. I'm happy to answer questions prior to the recommendations, and Darryl is also here with me should I have any technical things I can't answer. Thank you.
Councillor Sutton.
So, I'd like to hope, I think, that this is empowering our communities and doing things within the community and getting communities to work together is the reason why we all got into politics. It's certainly the reason I think I got into politics. And I would say, what is there not to like and support in here? Can I just say what an excellent piece of work I think this is in bringing all this together, and the way it's set out in fairly straightforward, simple, easy to read form is great. Great way of doing things and going forward. But I just want to highlight a couple of things in there and build a little bit on what Councillor Wilson has already said. That's firstly about the section about offering every Staffordshire child and young person the best start in life. I think that is fundamentally important, not just to what we do as a piece of business, what health does, what all the partners do, and what the communities can do to help and support that. The work we've done with the Supporting Families programme, which is held in high regard throughout the whole of the country. The support we've had, and building together with the VCSE sector on developing the early help strategy, you know, and I'd particularly like to pay thanks to Phil Pusey from Skivvies for his work on that over the years, and how that will then move into the family hub model that we are currently developing. Councillor Wilson mentioned the Household Support Fund, so I won't go into any details about that, other than to say, you know, we are we are developing the slow cooker programme that was offered initially in Newcastle under Lyme as a pilot scheme. And then the second part I want to talk about, and I talk about that in my role as chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, that this absolutely supports the Health and Wellbeing Board's priorities going forward. An example of starting to do this in action. On Friday of last week, myself and Councillor Wilson were in South Staffordshire talking to a large group of about 80 parish councillors and other partners, very much around this type of work, and I look forward to being able to see that go across the whole of the county, and I'm sure under Councillor Wilson's portfolio, that's what will be happening. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Councillor Tagg.
Thank you, Leader. I'd really like to endorse this position statement. I think it brings together for the first time all of the good work that's already going on across the county, and our communities really taking a part in all the agendas that the County Council has, and none more so than the climate change agenda, when there are many community groups, parish councils getting involved, all sorts of people across the county coming forward to take up the crusade really against climate change and to reduce our carbon emissions. I think this plan sets out a position statement which we can all sign up to in that regard, and in the other agendas as well. Particularly, I think, as Victoria mentioned, the Climate Change Action Fund, which will be going into its third year. I think we've seen in this year's schemes, a lot of schemes that have come forward involving community groups, involving schools, getting involved in planting wildflower meadows, making sure that they're recycling more, and also cutting the emissions through LED lights, etc. I think that's really gaining momentum now, and through this position statement we've got, we can get the word out there even more for next year that these schemes are worth applying for and can really make a difference in communities. I think also the one about getting more businesses involved, etc., in reducing their carbon emissions. I mean, the government's going to be putting a lot of pressure on businesses large and small in the future to ensure they have their plans for net zero. I think through SBEN, the Staffordshire Business Environment Network, it's really important that we help those businesses along the way with a plan to reduce carbon emissions, and that's all part of this position statement. So really welcome it, and it sets us in a good stead with some ideas to take forward in all areas, but particularly for me, that climate change agenda is including as many people as possible in the crusade we've got in the county to get to net zero by 2050.
Councillor Northcott.
Thank you, Leader. I really welcome this position statement. And like Councillor Sutton, there's very much here that isn't hard to like. I think empowering communities is going to be such an important role going forward. Rather than the council dictating where communities go, we listen to communities to see what is relevant for their needs, where the one community may be totally different in terms of their needs. And this covers that in terms of that, offering that flexibility to support families within Staffordshire. Particularly interested in the public health aspect of this, that healthy communities support healthy people, which is what we want to do. The first version, okay. That's to be welcomed, and I endorse Councillor Wilson's aspirations in the whole system approach in terms of benefits for the community, because as we want to see resilient communities, we want to see resilient individuals within those communities helping themselves and empowering themselves to what they need. So I fully endorse this. Thank you, Leader.
Councillor Jessel.
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, this is a very good piece of work, and I think demonstrates how this has brought together a number of threads of work that a number of Cabinet colleagues are doing. So I think it's really good that it brings it into a single document. I'd say a word of caution in terms of parish councils. I have 7 in my division. They do a tremendous job, but many of them now are of the view that the communities themselves need to do more rather than rely on parish councils. And I think this is one of the things that this document recognises, that communities are more than a parish council. They are a broad brush. Different community groups come together, whether it's for environmental reasons or social reasons, sport, supporting families or children. And I think the one thing that I really welcome is the ongoing support to develop that capacity, because I think that will be an ongoing requirement. People dip in and out of voluntary groups as their own circumstances change, and we need to ensure that that voluntary sector has that ongoing support to make sure that they attract new volunteers because of that churn. So I think this is an excellent piece of work. It is about building those resilient communities. As I always say, you know, the public sector with ever-increasing demand can't do everything, and it's not right. I think Councillor Wilson in full council did say volunteering is about helping other people, but my goodness, it's that warm feeling it gives you inside when you know as a human being you've helped another human being, and I think that's really key to this. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for making that final comment. That's really important. I've got Councillor White, Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, for bringing this. It's, I mean, it's something that we sometimes don't mention, that we're examples of people who want to help our communities here, as both as councillors and indeed as council officers. The reason why we're all sat around this table is that we want to help people in their lives and to make things better in our communities. But the way that we do it is only one particular way of doing it. There are many others, and what I really value in this approach, and it's a bit of a theme running through the meeting today in terms of being inclusive, I think, and positive, is that this is not about trying to dictate to people how they do things. It's about the county council using its ability to do certain things, to empower communities and community leaders to do things for people that will be of benefit to them. And I think that the only other comment I make is that I'd just like to pay tribute to the really positive way in which you go about leading this within the County Council. I think as senior leaders who are engaged with communities, whatever the senior leadership role we have is, it is really important that we are open, inclusive. Don't try and dictate the solutions, because we all have our personal views about what those solutions should be. But this report demonstrates exactly the right way of doing things, and it's the way that you do things as a leader, which is not to dictate, to be positive and empowering, play your part, and let others get on with playing theirs. So I absolutely salute that, and I'll be pleased to support these proposals.
Councillor Parry, then Councillor DeVille.
I'm grateful to Mark Sutton, to Councillor Sutton, for reminding us that this is what motivates us as local politicians, and potentially what encourages us to get involved in the first place. But this area of policy and activity for the County Council is probably the most difficult to get right. It's the hardest thing, I think. And that is because it's not about just investing or about infrastructure or about process. This is about a complex and large and complicated, in a sense, human endeavour. It's about lots of people working for a common aim, a common goal, and lots of groups of people doing the same things. So it's really difficult. I think we've experimented in this area over the years with some success, and with some areas that we feel perhaps that could have gone better. And again, that does speak to the fact that this is very difficult to get right. But this report this morning, I think, has us in the best place I've seen so far. I think this is an excellent position to be in, because it does a number of things. It understands the importance of the difference, which is what the Deputy Leader was referring to, between imposing and empowering. So we're not there to tell and instruct and show and all the rest of it. We're there to understand and to be the facilitator, the adhesive of those initiatives which are taking place. The second thing it does, I think, is where community policy has often been slightly lacking in focus and perhaps fragmented and confusing and a little bit airy-fairy at times. This, I think, is much more hard-edged, grounded, and delivers something which is meaningful and robust, and which we feel, I think we could probably measure much better than we've done before, because this is also an area that's notoriously difficult to measure the impact of whatever you put into it. How much are we getting out of it? How do you value that? Etc., etc. It's really difficult. I think this is much more tangible than that, and which is the important thing. It provides that tangibility to allow us to say, well, actually, these are the things we're going after. This is how we're going to go on that journey. These are the people we need to work with. And we're not trying to fix every problem. We're not trying to sort every community's issue. People have got to get on with those things themselves, as Councillor Jessel was saying. But it does allow us to focus on the priority areas where we think, actually, we can make a real difference, a real impact. So for me, this has brought forward, I think, a combination of many years of practice in this area and working with partners. And I think Councillor Wilson has brought this together very neatly, very nicely for us this morning to show us how actually we could do it in the future.
Councillor DeVille. Thank you.
Mr Northcott's right. A resilient community is a good community and a strong community, isn't it? It's these things that make our places good places to live. And Mark Sutton nailed it, really. What's not to like about this report, Chairman? Ian Parry makes a really interesting point. We've got to make this work. We've got to work closely with our communities and make this work. And I'll tell you when it did work, the initial response to COVID. That's when our communities really came to the fore. Not particularly with the help from government or the county council, for that matter. Just got on with delivering for their local community. And I've said on many, many occasions, if only we could bottle that community spirit that we saw during those early days of response. Well, I think this paper, Chairman, does sort of bottle that and moves it forward. And Ian makes interesting comments about making this work. I suppose at the end of the day, it's not all about innovation, and technology has a very, very important part to play. But really and truly, we're all about people, aren't we? It's people that make this work. And it's a great paper in helping us move that forward. And I agree, Mrs Wilson, it's great to see Mr Jones with us today from Support Staffordshire. They play a great part in moving that forward and helping communities to look after themselves and help themselves without interference from us or from government, but we've got a part to play in helping them to help themselves. And this is a great report that I totally support, Chairman.
Thank you. Before I come back to Councillor Wilson to sum up and read the recommendations, I just wanted to raise an observation about the role of councillors within the communities. I've been involved in voluntary groups in the places I live over the years, and all we wanted to do as voluntary groups is just get something done. Rebuild the village hall, raise some money for the school, raise a bit of money from the church. The last thing we ever wanted is somebody from the council turning up saying, I'm from the council and I'm here to tell you how to do it. Because actually, the effect that has on a voluntary group is for the people just to throw their hands up and say, well, if you're here to tell us how to do it, you crack on with it then, mate, and you pay the money. So the way we're approaching this now actually enables people to just get on with it and not have that interference that perhaps we have seen in some places before. It's going to persist. There's always going to be people who turn up and say, I'm from the council and I'm here to tell you how to do it. I think people around this table can probably identify in their mind's eye precisely those potential culprits. Nevertheless, I think this is a fantastic report. I just finally want to point out how well referenced it is. I appreciate that the opening couple of pages look a bit like an academic text with footnotes referencing the documents that we have referred to and used as part of the development of this strategy. But I think that's a really important thing to do, Councillor Wilson, because too often we stand accused from various groups of them saying, well, you didn't consider this and you didn't consider that. Explicitly on page 69 of the report, there are 7 footnotes which reference the documents that we've used as part of the formation of this. And it says, and it infers that we have used that as part of the drawing up of this report. And that allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that those groups who've gone to a lot of time and effort to create those reports, from the Marmot Review to the Skivis Children and Young People Voluntary Sector Census Report on this page, have been considered as part of your work, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Wilson, I'm going to hand back to you to briefly sum up, please, and give us the recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your comments. As Councillor Sutton said, best start in life for children is really, really key, and this is one of the things that we're going to be covering in this position statement. Holiday activities and food and the support for homes, unbelievable to people in this county. And it's no accident that we're reaching areas and pockets of people who might once have fallen through the gaps, and that, to me, is what this is all about. As Councillor Tagg has mentioned, it does bring together a lot of the good work under the climate change agenda. In the previous agenda item, or the one before that, the 5,000 trees for households, that's fantastic. That, you know, where else are we doing that? That's just brilliant. I would like to just comment and thank Phil Pusey as well from Skivvies, who isn't here with us but has helped us enormously over the last few years, and that cannot be understated. I'm working with Councillor Northcott and indeed Councillor Sutton, and thanks very much for their positive words and support on how we work more closely with parishes on the health initiatives that we're starting here. And yes, as Councillor Jessel said, we're pulling together all the strands under one plan. And some parishes will come with us and others will be less keen. But we are inviting all community groups to get involved, as they often do. And as Councillor White says, we're not doing to people, we're doing with people, we're empowering people. That's what this is all about. We do this to help as councillors, as members, and sometimes we can offer an enormous amount of help with just a little bit of signposting. Going back to Councillor Parry's comments, it's really hard to quantify how we measure a change of narrative and how we know how much we're actually preventing. But this position statement and this plan provides a framework for all of us, and this council is part of that community, and all of us have a part to play in that. Yes, resilience in the community will make our places even better places to live, although I firmly believe that Staffordshire is the best county in the country to live and work in. I'd like to thank everyone for their positive comments. We have bottled that great goodwill, releasing it now into the county, and we're spreading that positive spirit and hoping that it will continue even further. And as the leader says, telling people how to do it just won't work. So I'm really delighted that we can empower ourselves and others going forward. We went through this report with a fine-tooth comb, and I really thank the team for all that they've done in putting this together. So the recommendations are that I recommend that Cabinet consider and approve the attached communities position statement, including a review of the progress made with partners and communities in 21-22, approve the community's delivery plan for 23, and approve a proposal to engage with partners and communities to develop a long-term, innovative and ambitious community strategy for Staffordshire. Thank you.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
And just before we go on to the next agenda item, I cannot pass by our local democracy reporter's comments about the tree distribution scheme. She described it as tremendous. Oh, a future lies ahead in script writing, Kerry, I think. Agenda item 9 is the Integrated Performance Report Quarter 3 2022-2023, brought to you by myself and Councillor Parry. I consider this to be an incredibly important report because every quarter what it does is it checks in with portfolio holders to identify those areas where we're performing well, but more importantly, those areas where we need to improve our performance each quarter. We continue to face challenges in adult care, adult social care and children's services, including in recruitment and retention. But we continue to support our local businesses, as Councillor White pointed out in his report, to start up, survive and adapt. I'm going to hand over now to Councillor Parry just to take you through some of the details, particularly concerning the money, and then we'll go around to portfolio holders just to get points from them about their areas and the areas of pressure and also success. Councillor Parry.
Thank you, Leader. Leader, I'm from the Council and I'd like to help you to understand our Q3 Integrated Performance Report. This is, as you rightly say, a key document for Cabinet. It is indeed the public dashboard, if you like, of the delivery plan that Cabinet is charged to undertake to deliver the Council's corporate plans. And this, therefore, is that high-level dashboard that shows us how we are progressing on that journey. I'd also like to thank the people who've put this together for us on a regular basis, which is Rachel Spain and Wendy Thompson. Forgive me, Wendy, if you're listening. That was on the tip of my tongue. It just shows, doesn't it? So the report, the main report, is quite high level, and no doubt members of Cabinet will want to highlight areas on their portfolio which are worth bringing our attention to this morning. But in the main, the report at high level is overall a good position, with the exception perhaps in our children and families area, where we know there are still challenges in terms of the number of children coming into the care system and the time it's taken for our transition to be fully implemented. But overall, Leader and Cabinet, we have an overspend in our finances at Q3 of 16.135 million, which is 2.47% of the budget. We will be including or reducing that by use of our inflation reserve that we put together at the beginning of the year, which will take that down to 11.6 million. And the likelihood is that that will remain in that vicinity in terms of where we are at the year end. I'll be very pleased to see the year end this year. I'll be very pleased to see the end of this financial year, to be honest. It's one where so many unpredictable forces came to play, and in many respects has been extremely turbulent for us to try and manage. Not least, of course, inflation, which is still staying this morning at around 10%. That was not there in our forecasts. Neither was the cost of energy, neither was the increase in interest rates, etc., etc. So all of those things have had a tremendous effect upon our budget. We've had to reduce the pressures through the use of inflation reserves, etc. And we will need to perhaps go back to our reserve position at the end of the year to make sure that we land balanced. So difficult and challenging, but I think we can still say well run, still good budgetary control within all of that. We've managed those areas which have put additional pressures on us, particularly, for example, the higher than expected pay increase, and I have a recommendation for you, Leader, at the end of this session, which I will ask the Cabinet to approve the use of some 4 million from contingency plus 1.8 million from earmark reserves to cover that additional cost of our pay increase for staff this year, which was not in the original budget. So that's where we are, Financial Chair. Leader, I can perhaps commend to people to look at our appendices, and Appendix 2, which has got more of a detailed dashboard with some graphics in there to show where we are against plan over time. And I think it provides a lot more detail and interest for those who would like to delve a little bit deeper behind the headline narrative that's in the report itself. So with that, Leader, I'll back to you.
Thank you. I'd like portfolio holders to speak to their areas, and if I could start with Councillor Sutton and Councillor Jessel, please.
At full council last week, I think we spoke about the MTFS going forward, and this is a little bit more retrospective, isn't it? But actually, it's one and the same thing, because what we propose to start doing, we discussed in the MTFs going forward, is actually what we are all already doing. And as was highlighted earlier, we do have challenges in children's services, but we are working tremendously hard under the leadership of our DCS. And as I said last Thursday, you know, that's about continuing to embed the transformation system that we fully believe in, and I fully believe our staff fully believe in as well, going forward, and that's working with families, ensuring that where children are required to come into care for their safeguarding, we do that, but actually trying to ensure that we have the right placements for those children in foster care, kinship, before we have to revert to residential care, and before that working hard to keep families together and support families where we can to make those right decisions themselves to be able to do that. And when we do have children in our care, look and work hard to ensure where there are opportunities to reunite them with their families, that we actually do that. So that will continue through the fourth quarter and will continue into next year. And I have every confidence that the results of that will be very positive. I'll try not to repeat too much that we said in the previous item, but the report also highlights what we've been doing around the Household Support Fund, to help families across Staffordshire with the various schemes, and that finance for that we will have also for the next 12 months, and the holiday activity and food programme that we operate during Easter, summer and Christmas, providing activities for children that are entitled to free school meals, along with a healthy meal, and the absolute benefits of that scheme. And we will be working hard to try and ensure that every child who's entitled to that has that opportunity across those three school holidays. Because I've been out, as some of my colleagues, Victoria Wilson came with me, and Jonathan's been to visit some of those programmes, and we see the absolute benefit that brings, and long may that continue, and we develop that scheme to be even better, so we get the best value out of that and impact on as many children who are entitled to it as we physically can. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. I came to you first in particular because there are some councils who perhaps aren't as transparent about the challenges they face. And it's clear in the report that there are financial challenges in children's services, but we are confronting those and we're dealing with those. And the transformation programme that we're undertaking, where it needs additional investment and tweaking, we are doing it as we move forward. I'd just like to say that I've visited a number of your centres around the county, the children's centres and also the teams, and I've been really struck by their enthusiasm. The morale is high, they're determined to do a good job. They welcome the attention that the senior leadership of this authority is bringing to children's services for the right reasons. And I think we're starting to see the emergence of the promise of transformation becoming a reality over the next few months, particularly in the quarter that's just gone. Am I right? Yes, we're in the fourth quarter, aren't we? We're starting to see that now. And so thank you to you, Councillor Sutton. Thank you to you, Neelam, for the work that you're doing and your teams. I am hugely grateful, and I am impressed by what I'm seeing on the ground. The other big spending department, of course, is health and care, and the vast size of it can sometimes conceal some of the challenges that you're facing, Councillor Jessel. So I'd just like you to talk to not necessarily the challenges you are facing, but an acknowledgement of some of the pressures perhaps you might need to confront over the next few weeks and months.
Thank you very much, Chairman. But I think it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the hard work that's been done that overall we are on target. But as you quite rightly say, within that there are some significant challenges, not only because of an ever-aging population, demand is increasing, but also, as we're aware, the cost pressures on our service providers is also quite significant. As we know, the adult social care charging reforms have been delayed, and obviously the recruitment that we were planning to do has been put on halt, although one of the pieces of work that we are progressing well with is the enhanced assurance framework, with a CQC to most people, will be starting in April. The first 12 months is what they call a light touch approach, but it is important that we get this right, because the last thing we want is a CQC rating that doesn't hit the mark. They aren't formally rating organisations this year, but they will be next. So this is our opportunity to make sure that we've got all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. The annual fee review process has started, and whilst there is additional funding available from central government for market sustainability, undoubtedly care providers, both care homes, nursing homes and home care providers, have got cost pressures themselves, and this will be an extremely challenging round of negotiations. Whilst demand in the last quarter for assessments fell slightly, overall the trend is ever increasing. We are now meeting our target, which is 80% have a care review in 12 months. But I would like to highlight the significant improvements that there's been in the areas of learning disability and mental health. They did actually fall below the 80%, having had a review within the past 12 months. That has now significantly improved, and they are well in excess of that target, which is really good news. In terms of improvement in service, there was a significant backlog in terms of safeguarding assessments. That has now been brought down to a very manageable level, and the systems have been reviewed, the processes changed to ensure that we don't end up in a backlog situation again. So again, very good news. Workforce, we all know the challenges there. It's not going to go away, but I believe this authority is taking the right approach of working with partners, the NHS, private care providers, people who work in the care industry, have come together to develop a workforce strategy which will be launched by the partnership in March. And this looks at how we can raise the profile, make it a more attractive proposition for people to come into this career, and ensure that there is the career progression, the training and development that people want. Unless we do that, we can't deliver the services. So that is, I believe, a very important piece of work. Within the report, there is mention about the block booked bed system. We're going to more block booked rather than spot purchasing of beds in care homes and nursing homes. We've now completed the contracting process for 7 lots. This hasn't been rolled out as quickly as we'd planned, so the planned savings target has not been met. But within budgets, there is a little bit of swings and roundabouts, and overall, that budget is still being maintained. Block book beds have 2 key benefits. One, it gives greater stability to care providers, which in this current situation is extremely important, but also it provides better value for money for us as an organisation and obviously for the taxpayers. So that is again a very good piece of work. Supportive communities, following on from Councillor Wilson's report, the Moorlands pilot is progressing well. And also in the north of the county, the enhanced home care service is now up and running and is beginning to make an impact there. Finally, but by no means least, the public health dashboard. You may think, gosh, that's hardly high profile, but we spend a significant amount of money, £40 million on public health. And we're more focused now than ever, I believe, in making sure that that delivers the real benefits, both in maintaining healthy weight, activity. If we don't improve the overall well-being of our population, demands on healthcare and social care will be totally unmanageable. So it is important. There is now a proper dashboard which enables us to manage the outcomes, not just the activity, but the outcomes which are the real benefits. Thank you.
Councillor Price, then Councillor Tagg.
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. You did say, and I think it's really important to mention as well, particularly around SEND and everything else we do, is that word transparency. Since the written statement of action on our Ofsted inspection several years ago, it was found that SEND was not where it needed to be. And going forward, we have been extremely transparent around where those areas of weaknesses are, the difficulties moving forward, and then following on from that SEND transformation, which has been a huge upheaval for staff. However, I believe, and as Mark has mentioned as well, we're fully invested and believe in the SEND transformation model. It is absolutely right. Some of the challenges we face at the moment is particularly around finance and the fact that we are overspent on our high needs block. We have put a deficit management plan into place which will address some of that deficit. However, it is a national problem. It needs to be, I need to be very clear that high needs block overspend is a national problem with most authorities being substantially overspent, much more than we are. We have a good grip on where we are with our high needs block, and we will continue to do that going forward. We also have high demands around educational healthcare plans. So not only have we had an increase in educational healthcare plans, but with the capacity that we put in place, it was recognised that we didn't quite have enough educational psychologists, SEND key workers, and some back office or office business support staff. I'm really pleased to say, although not reflected in this document, because it is a retrospective document, but going forward we are now looking at recruiting to those posts to make sure that we have the capacity to deal with those educational healthcare plans, and through the next quarter and going forward we should see those numbers dealt with within 20 weeks dealt with. Early help and support is also key around this, as I feel, as others, that educational healthcare plans are not always the right suit for some of our children. So we're doing some work around our educational healthcare needs assessment plans to make sure that the children are picked up early enough with early support to enable us to signpost them to where they need that correct support, and not necessarily around educational healthcare plans. That as well will help us reduce the numbers and build or bring our finances more into balance. That is not a cost-cutting exercise by any stretch of the imagination. Any child that requires an educational healthcare plan will get one, but we do need to make sure that we support those children that don't. And we're also looking at our specialist provision going forward as well, to make sure that those children who don't need a special school place are supported within a mainstream setting and get the best support that are available. For me, it's about independence and being educated with other children. The specialist setting does not always allow that for some of our children and is not the appropriate place. And we need to make sure that within Staffordshire we have those places for our children, which will also reduce our need for independent places and allow children to be educated closer to home in the right setting. On top of that, it also means that we reduce those transport distances for some of our children as well, because as we know, we don't want our most vulnerable children being driven across county. We need to make sure they are educated in the right place, as close to home. So for me, I just wanted to also thank Neelam, and the officers, and particularly those in the districts, those SEND key workers, those educational psychologists, and that back office staff that are doing a huge amount of work behind the scenes to make sure that our SEND transformation is not only fully embedded, but we get to see those outcomes coming forward, which we will see in our future quarterly reports. They have done an excellent job, and Mark and I have visited them on numerous occasions to just see how they're doing. And morale is much better within those districts, and it's really pleasing to see. And I think as well, I don't mention this enough, and I always try and use every opportunity to talk about SEND, because this cabinet and members and our officers have never been so focused on the work that we do around SEND. We truly get it, we truly support it, and my colleagues here, particularly around these tables, have been very supportive in making sure that SEND is recognised, and that we make sure that the funding is in place and the support is in place to make sure that our most vulnerable children within the community are supported by us. So I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Finally, Councillor Tagg, then back to Councillor Parry to sum up, please.
Thank you, Leader. I've got three really to concentrate on in my area. Firstly is the rollout of the gigabit. That's progressing, and during this quarter we identified another 18,600 properties that were eligible for vouchers, so that will get them in those hard-to-reach areas to get them connected up to a faster connection, which can be used for leisure, business, particularly in the rural areas, so really pleased with that. As we mentioned earlier, the Climate Change Action Fund closed during this period on the 23rd of December. We had applications totaling £90,000 in our category areas for the Climate Change Action Fund, which is really good, and there's some really good projects, as I talked about, which we'll be promoting throughout the year that will help next year for community groups to come forward with further applications. And then finally, just an update on the household waste management sites, which of course came in house last year. During this period, we went out to consultation on a permitting for vans, and that's going to be reported back to Cabinet later in the spring. Thank you.
Sold you a dummy. I'm going to go for Councillor White, then Councillor DeVille, then I'm going to go for Councillor Parry.
Sorry about that, Leader. I think Councillor DeVille and I were a bit slow in putting our hands up, weren't we? So it's just one thing from me, because we've talked a lot about economic development this morning, and it's reflected in the report here. But one thing that we didn't mention, and I thought it was deserving of specific mention, is our Ignite scheme, which was launched in 2021 in partnership with Staffordshire Chamber of Commerce, which provides education around entrepreneurialism, business startups and general business skills to college students, has now had more than 13,500 students who've completed that programme, which is fantastic. Whether those individuals go on to set up their own businesses, as many will over the years, or whether it's making them more work ready when they go into the workplace, 13,500 students since 2021 through that scheme. And I didn't want that to pass without special mention.
Councillor DeVille.
Leader, thank you. I'll be very brief. We have a massive property portfolio, and I think we're all very proud of projects that we've delivered in the past 12 months, 18 months. Particularly proud, of course, just round the corner at Shire Hall with the work that's happened there at the Enterprise Hub. Not only is that great for small businesses, it's all great for the heartbeat of the town centre. Mr Sutton and Mr Price have been speaking about the importance of our children. Absolutely. To that end, I'm delighted that work continues on a new primary school at Lichfield. I'm also delighted that work has started at the Kingston Centre, where the children from St Leonard's will move into a purpose-built and modern facility to be opened in September of this year, Leader. Also delighted that contractors are in place at Tamworth Library for important refurbishment there. A lot of work is ongoing, not least of all, and we'll all be delighted, particularly Councillor Price, at the £8 million school maintenance programme, which has over 100 projects across the county. So all positive. It's a massive portfolio that obviously needs maintaining. So the contract frameworks that I bring on a regular basis, Leader, to this meeting, they are really important to ensure that we continue to provide best service and provide optimum properties to conduct our business, also to provide, as always, best value to Staffordshire taxpayer. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. And I am grateful for Councillor White's intervention, actually, because it reminds me of the importance of a good job as part of people's overall place in society, their health outcomes, the outcomes likely for their children, the ambition that comes with it. So thank you for your intervention there, Councillor White. Councillor Parry, if you'd like to sum up and give us the recommendations, please.
Thank you, Leader. I'm very grateful to colleagues for providing that commentary and context to this report. It's really important that we have that and understand what sits behind it. What I think has been a common theme this year is that we've held our nerve and that we've maintained that focus upon those areas where, as the leader said before, the pressure exists and we're not afraid to call it out. We're not afraid to invest and to work on it until we resolve it. We don't let it drift and we don't let it fester and we don't let it grow. And that's the important thing, is that we've maintained that kind of pressure on our finances, which means that we are now in a position where we can, in a sense, draw a line under this year, as tough as it's been, as unpredictable and turbulent as it's been, and look forward to next year, where I think we're in a better position to plan. We will start with a balanced MTFS, a balanced budget, and Cabinet have already been talking last week and this week about potentially new investments and new projects and exciting new ideas that we'll bring also to this Cabinet at some point that will demonstrate that actually we're on the front foot and we are demonstrating that we can do even better being a well-run, balanced council that knows our minds and has got a clear strategy ahead. I have to recommend to the Cabinet this morning, Leader, if I may, that the Cabinet notes and challenges performance and advises of any further information and or action required. And B, the Cabinet approves the use of the remaining 4 million of contingency reserve plus 1.189 million from earmark reserves, which will cover, as I mentioned earlier, the increase in payroll.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendations. All those in favour?
Agreed.
For the record, that's unanimous. Next item on the agenda is decisions taken by Cabinet members under delegated powers. 5 of them, 2 from the Cabinet Member for Education and send Councillor Price, in approving the determination of admission arrangements for community and voluntary controlled schools in 2024 to 2025 and coordinated admission schemes for the same year. And secondly, in approving recommended revised Staffordshire agreed syllabus in the religious education under Schedule 31 brackets 2 of the Education Act 1996. The Cabinet Member for Health and Care, in approving the relocation of the Newcastle Specialist Day Opportunity Service to the Brackenbury site, along with the refurbishment and modernisation of the building. And then from the Cabinet Member for Highways and Transport, in approving the level of support from the approved concessionary travel budget, which will be used to support local bus services in Staffordshire to avoid extensive bus network reductions in 2023. And thank you very much indeed for that one, Councillor Williams. And then by myself, in approving the amendment to the pay structure to accommodate the deletion of the spinal column point 1 on the national pay spine. They are the decisions made by Cabinet members under delegated powers. Moving forward to the forward plan of key decisions. The following items are brought to you in the public meeting on the 15th of March 2023. Our People's Strategy 23 and Beyond, brought to you by myself. Capital Programme for Schools 23-24, brought to you by Councillor Price. Highways and Transport Capital Programme 23-24, brought to you by Councillor Williams. Staffordshire County Council Local Flood Risk Management Strategy, brought to you by Councillor Tagg. Mental Health and Mental Wellbeing Strategy 23-28, brought to you by Councillor Jessel. Moving forward into May, so you'll note that it doesn't appear to be a Cabinet for April. Into May, Corporate Delivery Plan 23-24, brought to you by Councillor Parry. Moving forward to June, in public, Joint Coroner's Service Legal Framework Financial Protocol, brought to you by Councillor Wilson. I've got everything crossed for that one, Councillor Wilson. Again in June, Maintenance of Minor Works Framework, brought to you by Councillor DeVille, and that concludes the forward plan. Agenda item number 12, there are no matters for exclusion of the public. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the meeting. I did notice that the Chairman of Council on last Thursday really mangled the surname of Councillor Peter Kruskonchik. And at some point in the near future, we are going to have to summon up the confidence to get Neelam's surname nailed. Because at cabinet meetings, we always use surnames. It's Mr. that, Mrs. So-and-so, councillor this, councillor that. And nobody so far, myself included, has had the confidence to have a crack at Neelam's surname during a cabinet meeting. So Neelam, give it to us so that we can listen and learn, and we promise you at the next cabinet meeting we'll get it right.
I'm actually quite happy with Neelam, but the surname is pronounced Bharadwaj.
Let's stick with Neelam. Right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.